I'm really sorry to say, but this one advice about XAT attempt strategy, which I hear so often, that, adapt the strategy to your strengths and play it absolutely as per your strength. Bilkul, if you think that you are strong in QA, then start with QA, or you can start with DM or this or that, do it as per your want. This is absolute crap. And the reason why I'm stating this as clearly as I can is because it is important. You need to know the reason why there is one strategy which usually works the best in XAT, and sure, if there is anything else which you're using apart from that, then you need to have strong reason for you to use it. या तो आपके नंबर XAT मॉक्स में अच्छे आ रहे हो तो great, please continue to use that, or if not, then there is one strategy which usually works. In this video, I will be sharing with you not just what those strategy is in the point number 3, but also I'll be sharing with you the principles that why am I recommending you whatever I am recommending you, because I don't want you to just blindly follow me. I think it is too much for me to ask you that in the last week to XAT blindly follow whatever I'm saying. No. Then it's also my responsibility to give you reasons and certain principles that, okay, why am I saying what I'm saying? All of this is inside this video. If you don't know me yet, I'm Darpan Saxena, an MBA graduate from Udaipur. I have been the MBA Product Head at Career Launcher. I'm the founder of Creatum, and I help MBA students create fulfilling careers without depending on placements. Now, the point is one very simple thing. The video which I was about to make right now was a XAT mock attempt, wherein I would have walked blindly into a mock or a previous year XAT exam and I would have solved it. But then I thought that, okay, wait, no. Before I start solving it, the student should know that, okay, what is the principles with which I am approaching a mock? How am I dividing the time between the 3 sections? Extremely important. Therefore, I thought that, okay, I need to make this quick video before that. Now, let me hop on to what your attempt strategy is and why I call it the science of attempting XAT. There is a reason for that. Let me start off with the XAT paper structure only so that you and I are on the same page. You know this already. We're talking about the part 1 of the paper, which has 3 sections, which are VALR, verbal ability and logical reasoning, 26 questions, decision making, DM, which has 21 questions, and QA, DI, quant and data interpretation, which has 28 questions. Overall, part 1 makes it 75 questions, and the duration for you to solve these 75 questions is 170 minutes, which effectively means, my dear friends, that you have around 2 minutes and 15 seconds per question. You can calculate this and you would know. In CAT, this same figure is around 1 minute and 50 seconds, which means in XAT, you have approximated 25 seconds more figuratively to solve all the questions, to solve per question. That's that. Now, how does this help? I will share with you in the video. Next up is that, my dear friends, that the marking scheme, you know it, but it is important for me to highlight this again because one aspect of it is going to be talked about again later in the video. That for every correct answer you get +1, every incorrect answer you get -1/4, not -1/3, -1/4, which is 0.25. And for the unattempted questions after the 8th question, which means from 9th question onwards, you get a negative marking of 0.1. This is important. Now, this unattempted questions attracting negative marking plays a very small role in XAT attempt strategy. I'll be speaking about it later. But before that, I would want to give you what should be your sequence of attempt, because I see a lot of students not getting the kind of scores they should get in their mocks, primarily because of their attempt strategy. And when you do those 1-to-1 paid calls with me, I realized the shit. Probably something as small as their attempt strategy, they had to book a call with me. No, that should not happen. I should be giving you this thing for free. That is why I'm making this video. Now, before I start prescribing you that what is my ideal attempt strategy, I must share with you certain principles which I think are non-negotiable. For one, you might want to change the recommended attempt sequence completely, but you should not change the principles. You have to follow these. Now, what are these principles? Extremely important. There are 3 of them. And you need to hear this clearly. Nobody else is speaking to you about this. Everyone else is making short reels on this and they're giving you that. No, I wanted to talk to you about the science. The principle number 1 is very simple, my dear friends. Please solve one section completely before hopping on to the next section. What I'm trying to tell you is that please do not hop between sections. It is so sad that I had to put these as a principle, but I had to because I saw what sort of advice is going around on YouTube and on Instagram. Certain educators have, I've seen those reels wherein certain educators are also saying that, what, you can start the paper with quant and solve some 5-6 questions in quant so that you get all warmed up for quant, and then you can switch to your VARC and DM and then come back to us. Like, what are you talking about? No, nobody has prepared for that shit. Therefore, that is and then there was another one, a very reputed person from a very reputed institute, saying that, okay, keep some extra 5-10 minutes at the end, so that once you have solved your VRC, your DM and your QA, then you can plan that, okay, where should I spend those last few, maybe, if you have not solved sufficient number of questions in your VA and this thing LR, maybe you can solve those questions. No, that's not how it works. Because while you're accounting for those 5-10, when you are actually solving the mock, you will realize वो 5-10 रहते ही नहीं है. एंड जिस सेक्शन में आप छोड़ के आ गए थे सोच के कि अरे वो लास्ट में जो टाइम रखा हुआ है ना मैंने, उसमें मैं कर लूंगा ये सॉल्व क्वेश्चन, आप कभी वहां तक पहुंचते नहीं, आप कभी सेक्शन क्लियर नहीं करते. कमिंग बैक टू दिस, माय डियर फ्रेंड्स, द सिंपल एंड स्ट्रेट एडवाइस इज, प्लीज स्टिक टू व्हाट वी हैव बीन डूइंग. Solve one question in one flow and never look back at that section ever again. Complete one section. There is a very big problem of time leakage. Please realize that the moment you start following strategies like switch from this to that and back to this, there is some amount of context switching which is happening in your head. Your mind is not designed to do that shit. Or why do you want to exploit your mind to do that? It's not efficient use of the mind. Do things which are familiar. And I've used a very important word, familiar, which will bring me to the principle number 2 of mine, which is this, my dear friends. The principle number 2 is a very important principle, that please keep your attempt strategy as close to the CAT strategy which you have. Why am I saying that? My dear friends, XAT is not an exam for which you have studied for 6 months or 8 months or 1 year, or maybe you are repeating the year for. XAT is not that exam. The exam for which you have been studying and practicing for 6 months or 8 months or an year is CAT. XAT, in most cases, even the ones who are going to XLRI, is more like an afterthought after CAT. वो जो लास्ट के 4 हफ्ते 3 हफ्ते रह गए उसमें they study, they take मतलब the mocks and they get into XLRI. That's that. So let's be true about this thing, that आपने जिस एग्जाम की पढ़ाई करी वो actually CAT है. The point which I'm trying to make, my dear friends, is that CAT is that exam for which you have taken 20 mocks, 25 mocks, 40 mocks. Therefore, there is familiarity in that. Most students don't even take 5 mocks for that. The point which I'm trying to make is that in such a less time, there is no scope for experimentation and trying these new things. First do this, then 2 questions of this, and then 10 questions of this. That's nonsense. Absolute nonsense. I'll say it face to face to you. That's crap. That's nonsense. Bullshit. As simple as that. What you have to do is stick to what you know. कि मैं कैट में एक सेक्शन एक बारी में खत्म करता था, वो करूंगा. इन मोस्ट केसेस शायद मैं सीक्वेंस भी मेंटेन करके रखूंगा. आई हैव गिवन यू अ हिंट ऑफ व्हाट आई एम अबाउट टू प्रिस्क्राइब यू, एंड नाउ यू नो द रीजन व्हाई आई एम अबाउट टू प्रिस्क्राइब you that. So please stick on up till the end, and it's just a simple advice. Do not reinvent your system. If you can keep it close to CAT, it pays to keep it close to CAT. It is simpler and efficient. And the principle number 3, which is third in the hierarchy, is that adapt strategy to your strength. अब आप कर लीजिए adapt strategy. Adapt strategy to your strengths cannot be the golden advice which a YouTuber would come and say to you कि अरे XAT की क्या strategy होती है सर जी, adapt it as per your strength. बस छोड़ दिया, adapt strategy. ऐसे नहीं होता है. Adapt strategy, once you have ensured that you have completed the first वाला principle, second वाला principle, अब आप you can play around in this, which means that भाई ठीक है, align your order with your strongest comprehension video. Again, I am dropping hints of what I am about to prescribe you, and you would have actually understood it here. In most cases, you would want to follow one strategy which I am about to say to you, and I'll share with you that how you can adapt it towards your strength. I will simply go to the recommended attempt sequence over here, and my dear friends, this is no secret now because I've almost been hinting at what I'm about to recommend you. It's a very simple thing. I think your attempt sequence should be one very simple thing. This is what my attempt sequence always has been for XAT. VALR first, DM second, and QADI in the last. And now let's see what is going to be the split, that how much you should spend in what. The way I see it, and I'll just open it and here. The way I see it, 170 जो होता है हमारे पास एक टाइम, ब्रॉडली टू स्टार्ट ऑफ इट, मान लो अगर आपको अभी अपनी स्ट्रैटेजी समझ नहीं आ रही है एंड यू हैव टू क्रिएट योर स्ट्रैटेजी फॉर योर ओन सेल्फ, द ब्रॉड मैनर in which I would actually divide my time is that I would do exact half of it first of all, which means 85 and 85। अब वो 85 तो मैंने सीधा सीधा QA को दे देना है। क्यों दे देना है? क्योंकि QA is not just QA is also QA plus DI। There are different kinds of सवाल in it। QA and DI is that one area wherein I have the maximum chance of having the highest amount of accuracy, because in QA and DI there will be absolute answers, and while the questions in DI and XAT might be calculation intensive, that is all right, but I need to give it good amount of time so that the 28 questions, it is also the largest section among the three, so that I give the 28 questions the due respect which they need in terms of the time which they need. Therefore, broad based, I would say that okay, half the time I have given it to it. When I'm saying half the time, means what? Means 170 का half कितना होता है? 85 minutes. Therefore, my starting point of arriving at my strategy is not this. It's actually this. I said that ठीक है, 85 minutes मैंने side कर दी है. Now this 85 might also be 90 minutes. It might also be 80 minutes. We can change that much. Obviously we can change that much. But ये है broadly. अब remaining 85 में मुझे खेलना है VARC and DM में. VALR में एक चीज मुझे मालूम है. XAT VALR, one thing which I know for sure is that while there are RCs also which might be complex, while there might also be even more complex RCs which you know, which are called the poem RCs, which are even more complex, but I also know that there are questions like fill in the blanks, like the grammar questions, which I know will be simpler and might not even take a lot of time. I would just read those questions and I would know the answer instantly. So long and short of it is that VALR I would be able to do in 40 minutes easily, which if you see is also very similar to CAT. 40 minutes VA and RC may I have spent, and the LR which comes in XAT is not the kind of LR which comes in CAT. This is more like your critical reasoning kind of an LR. So this is more like what I would do for the CAT exam already. Then the next section I would come to is DM. DM I might want to give 5 minutes more than what I give to my VALR, only on the simple account that there is more amount of reading which I have to do in DM. So while I just now explained that at least in VALR you would be having certain questions which will be very simple, which will be straightforward, that ye hai, which spot should this be in. There will be very simpler questions. In DM all the questions will have long stems of the questions and I have to read and I have to understand. So while the number of questions in DM are lower than VALR, which is here you will be able to see, it is only 26 and 21 यहाँ पे, मगर फिर भी DM में complexity थोड़ी ज़्यादा है on account of that it is also a section which is new. I have not practiced for it enough number of times. Now when I actually open this, you would know this. I am suggesting you VALR to do first because you need to approach both VALR and DM with a fresh mind, because these are comprehension heavy. You cannot get bogged down with QA and DI and then come to solve this and then no. Also one very important thing, you will not be able to think wisely, which is what you need for DM. If you are very stressed out and you are feeling अरे यार कौन तो मेरा खराब हो गया, वो सब उस सब के साथ नहीं कर पाओगे. You've practiced VALR through this thing and you know that okay, for you to read all of those dense RCs you need to be fresh. The second has to be DM, because again for you to have ethical clarity you need to have cognitive energy. The more time you spend in that exam environment, and especially if quant is not your strength, and if you choose to do your quant first, you are gonna get completely buzzed off, because then your cognitive energy or ability to think and the energy to think is going to be so low that you'll mark some random answers. It happens. You can check this out in mocks. It happens because also you have the cognitive load of deciding which section to do first and how much time is left. Acha, ab I should go to next. In CAT, we don't have all of this cognitive load on our head. You know, wo ab khatam ho raha hai to khatam ho raha hai timer. As simple as that. Coming back to this, this is important. DM also is a section wherein unless and until you're great in it, your accuracy is going to be around somewhere between 65, 70, 80, 85. उससे ऊपर नहीं जाती है, usually नहीं जाती है. अगर बहुत strength है आपकी तो ही होगी. मेरी strength थी. For me, DM was absolute strength. I scored very well in DM. That's that. In QA and DI again, it is important QA last, because QA is absolutely mechanical. These are not questions like your other exams wherein you have to be very smart. No, these are calculation intensive, especially because predominantly most number of questions are going to be arithmetic based. Therefore, get done with the sections which require cognitive load and then come to this. Now, is there an exception to this? Yes, there are two exceptions to this. First of all, I said to you कि जो मैंने यहाँ पे ये लिखा है ना कि this has to be exactly इतने मिनट and मतलब ये 40 मिनट and 85 minutes. No, this is not exactly this much. If suppose VALR is your absolute strength, you can reduce this to probably even half an hour. 30 कर सकते हो उसको. Probably you can spend that extra समय in QA and DI. You could do that. Or you could change this by 5-10. For sure you can, as long as you have practiced that enough in mocks. Now you take this and you practice this in your mocks. Extremely important. One more exception. Somebody might say that, sir, QA पहले कर लूँ क्या, क्यों नहीं कर लूँ? पहली बात तो है, I have already advised you why I am saying that no, QA should not be first. But if, I can only imagine one or two circumstances or the kind of students who would want to do QA first, is that there is one student, suppose, who is exceptional in QA. वो QA king है, suppose, उसको बहुत अच्छे से king आता है, but also they are not very weak in your VA and your DM. अगर आप इस किस्म के हो that you are an absolute rock star and your QA is your absolute strength, but your weaknesses, which are VA, LR and your DM, are not so weak also, then you have a free hand. Whatever you think will give you that jump at the start of the paper, it might be QA. Do that, go for it, be my guest. That is one case which I see. The second case which I see is maybe that if your VA is so weak that anyways you don't have hope from that, सपोज करो, तब फिर तुम ये कहोगे कि सर मैं VA पहले करके भी करके आ लूंगा, बट फिर भी आई वुड एक्चुअली एडवाइस यू टू नहीं, यू शुड डू VA फर्स्ट इवन इन दैट केस. द ओनली केस इन विच आई सी यू सॉल्विंग QA फर्स्ट is when, as I explained it, that you're exceptional in all three and QA is your strength out of those three also. Finally, यार one more thing, final words, I would just want to say this to you. Take away final मेरा ये है कि मैंने पहले भी लिखा हुआ है, XAT is an attitude exam, not an aptitude exam. This is something which I usually say. It's an attitude exam. It checks your attitude, not just on the kind of questions which it asks, which is the section of the DM, which is absolutely about what your attitude is, but it also checks your attitude in this different manner of seeing how do you adapt to the questions and कितने सवाल सही कर पाते हो नहीं कर पाते. Mental freshness होना जरूरी है. One more reason why you need to give adequate amount of समय to QA, again very important reason. You would have forgotten or maybe not that leaving a question attracts a score, a negative score, which if you now think about, that gives this even more फायदा to do this, because in QA you would still be able to solve a सवाल and find the answer. You will not be stuck यार option B है या फिर option D है या option E है, क्या है मुझे नहीं समझ आ रहा है, ऐसा नहीं है. Therefore XAT is an exam which encourages you to attempt more, even if you are confused between two sections, or sorry, between two options. It is somewhere prescribing you कि attempt कर जाओ, अगर दो में भी तुम्हें क्लैरिटी नहीं हो रही है कर जाओ, एक कोई ले लो आगे जाओ. That is what it is saying to that. Do not leave questions unattempted. Leave it unattempted only when you don't know anything about it. That's the only time you leave it unattempted. Otherwise you attempt the shit out of the paper, and for that to happen you need to quickly get done with VALR with a high attempt rate. You need to quickly get done with DM with a very high attempt rate. High means almost all questions. Aim for solving all questions in DM and VALR. Then when you come to QA and DI, you need to have a similar kind of a feeling to it, but you have adequate amount of time to solve. My dear friends, without me repeating the same thing, I'll just say this one final thing to you, that whatever you do in XAT, do make sure that you practice it in your mocks. Also, do not forget that you're only preparing for XAT. You have to prepare for MBA admission interviews as well. One final word about it. I have an entire course on it, which I call How to Be School. Extremely important course. It's a pre-MBA program, which you need to start off right now during your MBA interview prep. Why? Because this course has a few sub programs in it which I have, and one of them is called MBA specialization, wherein inside that course I help you choose which should be your specialization, whether should you do consulting or finance or marketing or HR or ops or what else. Why is this important, my dear friends? This is important because when you go to your MBA admission interviews, you need to be answering questions like why MBA, what you want to do after MBA. If you are operating with lack of clarity, that lack of confidence will show on your face. That's one. Second thing is that my course also has a sub course called MBA Concept Crashers, which is what? Which is that all the first year MBA concepts in marketing, fin and ops and whatnot are being taught to you inside this course in a very basic level. Which means what? Which means that you are walking in your interviews with confidence. Take this and run with it. Now is the time. Otherwise, it's gonna be late. I'll see you in the next video. Thanks a lot and goodbye.